Freddie Mercury actually said that. I won't be a rock star, I will be a legend. I mean, that's not just confidence, is it? That's like a prophecy. And the incredible thing is, he spent his entire life making it come true.
But if he had to pick one single moment, one day that absolutely cemented that legend, it would have to be in 1985, on a stage that would literally change music history forever.
So, let's dive into the story of the man who didn't just front a band. No, he became absolute rock royalty.
And really, there's only one place to start: the absolute summit. We're talking Live Aid, the biggest stage in the world, and a performance that wasn't just good, it defined an entire generation.
Okay, picture this. For just 21 minutes, Freddie Mercury has 72,000 people at Wembley Stadium right in the palm of his hand. And not just them, but a billion more people watching on TV. It wasn't just a concert, you guys. It was a masterclass. He somehow turned this giant, sprawling stadium into this intimate, personal sing-along. So, to understand how a man could do that, we've got to go way back to the beginning.
All right, so let's hit rewind. We're going to leave that global icon at Wembley for a minute and travel back to meet a young boy with a totally different name, born a whole world away.
I mean, the transformation is just staggering. Seriously, on one side, you've got Farrokh Bulsara, a kid with Parsi Indian heritage born in Zanzibar, and on the other, you have Freddie Mercury, the flamboyant rock god with that insane 4-octave vocal range. The journey from one to the other, well, that's the story we're here to tell.
And his beginnings weren't what you'd expect, Not some gritty rock and roll clubs. Nope. It all started at a boarding school in India. That's where he first sat down at a piano, at just 7 years old. And it's also where his friends started calling him Freddie. Little did they know the whole world would be chanting that name one day.
And then, bam, everything changes. It's 1964, and because of political unrest back in Zanzibar, his family has to flee. Where do they end up? Middlesex, England. And that one move? Well, it put the future rock god in the exact right place at the exact right time. And get this, he was a total artist. And I don't just mean with his voice. He went to Ealing Art College, and that diploma he got in graphic art and design, it wasn't just something to hang on the wall. He actually used those skills himself to design the iconic Queen logo. You know that super detailed regal crest? Yeah, that was all Freddie. All right, so we have the artist, he's in London. Now it's time to build the dynasty. Let's talk about how Queen was actually forged. And man, it happened fast. In 1970, he links up with Brian May and Roger Taylor in their band Smile. But Freddie comes in and pretty much immediately takes the reins. He renames the band Queen, which you got to admit was so bold and perfect. A year later, they find their bassist, John Deacon. And that's it. The classic lineup is complete. The team that would conquer the world was set.
And their big breakthrough moment? It was just as wild and unconventional as Freddie was. On their album, A Night at the Opera, Freddie writes this 6-minute masterpiece. It's part rock, part ballad, part opera. And the record label? They thought he was nuts. They swore up and down it would never, ever be a hit single.
Of course, we all know they were wrong. That song was Bohemian Rhapsody, and it was just the beginning of the avalanche. I mean, just look at this list of hits. These aren't just songs, they're anthems. They're the soundtrack to our lives, blasted in stadiums and at parties all over the world, even today.
But, behind all that massive success, behind that magnetic, larger-than-life guy on stage, the final chapter of his life was a very different story. It was a much quieter and much more personal battle.
And that's one of the most incredible things about Freddie Mercury, this huge paradox. The same man who could hold 72,000 people in his thrall was, by pretty much every account, a deeply private, even shy person. He had this tiny, fiercely loyal inner circle of friends, like Mary Austin, who was a constant right through his entire life.
So in 1987, he was privately diagnosed with AIDS, and for years he told almost no one. He just kept working, recording music with this unbelievable sense of urgency. It was only on November 23, 1991 that he finally released a public statement confirming he was ill. And then, he was gone the very next day.
Just 45 years old. That's it. But his death, as tragic as it was, immediately sparked something huge. The tribute concert held in his honor wasn't just a memorial service. It was this massive, global event that dragged the conversation about AIDS out of the shadows and into the mainstream in a way that had never happened before.
Okay, now let's jump forward in time. Decades go by. A whole new generation comes along. And what happens? somehow the legend just gets bigger.
Think about it. In 2018, the movie Bohemian Rhapsody comes out and becomes this global phenomenon. It doesn't just remind people of his story, it creates millions of new fans. I'm talking about kids and teenagers who are suddenly discovering Queen, singing every word, and just completely captivated by this man's life.
So, at the end of the day, his place in music history is completely secure. It's not even up for debate anymore. You can look at any fan poll, any critics list, the album sales, they all point to the exact same conclusion. He is, without a doubt, one of the greatest singers in the history of music, period.
And that brings us right back to that first quote, doesn't it? What's the real difference between a rock star and a legend? Well, a rock star has some hits. They sell out arenas. That's great. But a legend? A legend's voice echoes forever. And Freddie Mercury? He proved he knew the difference all along.